Hi, it's Pete the Bumbling Modeler back again. This will be the second part of the Scimitar build video. I initially intended to do it as a one-part build, but it was just going on too long. So in this second part, you'll see me go through the process of decaling, correcting some of the mistakes I've made with decals, putting a filter over the whole machine, pin washing, and adding the final dirt, grime and paint chippings. So it'll carry on from here. If you want to know how we got to this stage, part 1 should be already uploaded. So thanks for watching, and I'll continue with the build. Hi, it's back onto the Scorpion again. I'm still not sure why that paint chipping didn't work on those mud flaps. I've done that sort of method so many times and it's worked every time. As soon as I do it on camera, that doesn't matter. I'm kind of happy with the effect I've got on the mud flaps now, so kind of inspired me to carry on. So the whole thing is now fully deckled up, and this is where the sort of next disaster befell me, really. Partly due to my fault and partly I think because of the instructions. So when I'm decaling, the way I like to work is balance it all together, and you start on one corner, work your way all the way around, taking off the decals on the sheet until you know they're all done, otherwise you tend to miss things out. So started with this 23 here, everything was going fine and dandy. So these side UN ones, if you look on the instructions, it's number 29 there. You've got 29 on the top and 29 on the other side. So started working my way around, and the first thing I came across was you got a UN there that's identical, a UN there that's identical, and a completely different size one here, because we've only got two 29s, and this one actually should be numbered differently and put on the hull there. But in my way of thinking, it didn't really matter, because you're not going to see this side and this side simultaneously, so no one's really going to notice. If you look straight away you will, but you won't. And also, because you've got two different markings on this side, it may well be logical that you get a large one on that side. So there's reasons in your mind why that hasn't worked out. In doing all this though, I had some setting solution sitting here, and I touched the paint when I was putting this side on, and I lifted a bit of paint off. Now I'm using Microset and Microsol, which pretty standard, and I've never had paint lift with them before, but I had been cleaning my airbrush, and in the past I've noticed that although my hands appear dry, they'll mark paint when I've been using a lot of self-leveling thinners, which is basically a refined cellulose thinner. So I'm just wondering if it sits in your pores, and when your hand gets warm there's enough vapor coming off it to lift paint, because it's the only time it's happened on the rest of the model as well. But anyway, I had a patch of paint there to deal with, so had to spray that in again white. I was going to leave it and make it a scratch all down the side, but that goes against what I said earlier about making this quite a tidy vehicle. So the paint doesn't exactly match, but I think part of that difference in colour is a difference in sheen. So it's going to have another gloss coat over it, it's going to be lightly weathered, then it's going to have a satin coat over it. So I think that'll blend in okay. In doing so, it bled over that side of the decal there, but that wasn't my biggest problem. So the next issue I had was, if you look at all the UN markings, they've got gaps in all the letters as though they're stenciled on, but the Belgian UN ones that you can do as an option aren't like that. They're completely unbroken. So the only UN one that had fit on this side was the Belgian unbroken one, so I've had to mask off and spray the gaps in there. Again, same paint, slightly different colour, but I think that might just be a texture thing as well. I think that'll blend in a lot later on. So masking tape at the sides, spray that little line as it's done with a stencil. Again, everything's going fine, and because I'm rushing, what I should have done was let it dry, put a gloss coat over it to seal that decal, let that dry, then masked it. I didn't. Lifted the masking tape and tore half that decal off. So then that led to cutting sections off these decals to patch it up. So once this is fully dry, then go back to a quick gloss coat and then spraying that little break there as though it's been done with a stencil. So that should all be done over the weekend. Then I can give it all a gloss coat to seal everything in and put a light greyish wash over it that'll represent road film. So that's where we are with the Scimitar, and next time you see it, it will be weathered. Periscopes will all be painted in, headlights will be painted in, a wash inside these grills. I'll probably do the washes on camera, and yeah, well, then we're on to the more detailed weathering on that. So that's where we are at the moment, and I'll be back soon with a bit more on this if I can get that thing to line up. Right, let's leave that one there. Okay, we're back on the Scimitar, which I've realised I alternately call it Scimitar and Scorpion. In my mind, they're interchangeable because it's just a different gun, but they are slightly different vehicles. So, enough of that. As we've seen, we've decaled it. Then, since the decaling, I've given another gloss coat on top of the decals. That's to stop any of the filter wash I'm about to put on now running underneath the decal and getting caught between the decal film and the carrier, because that'll just look hideous. I've still got to paint in the periscopes, but I'll probably do that after this stage. So what I want to do now is put a sort of overall filter on it of a sort of road grime. So it's going to be a mixture of this light grey oil paint, this dust, that'll be the main one that goes over the whole tank. Then on the lower area, I'll mix a bit of earth in with it, and the wheels and lower bits, mud flaps, will get a bit of that. So it'll be like the general road grime you get on top of a vehicle, followed by sort of localised dust and mud. Now I think the best way to do this is to ping the wheels off. I'm not sure how good this will look either on a white background. I think that's going to wash all the colour out, but I need it to stop the mess getting everywhere. But I've left the wheels unglued for this moment in time, so we'll whip them off. And then we can get a good coat around the suspension and running gear. I don't think you're ever going to see that looking at it when it's on, but it's there. But we need to, if this is looking grimy, am I off camera? Sorry. If this is looking grimy and this is looking brilliant white under there, it's not going to be good. And it's not going to cling too well to it, this first coat either. This, because it's glossy, this will just cling in the corners and give us a bit of definition. I don't want it to be massively messy at this stage. I just want to highlight all the features and knock back the white. Although we've got it slightly off white, I want to knock that back a bit further. So I'm going to use my normal Abteilung odorless thinners. I don't like using pipettes for single-use plastic type reasons, but for this, I can't and easy, so I get a good blob of it there. And the first coat, for want of a better word, will be just to mix that grey and a bit of the dust. I'm going to put a glove on to handle a tank while I do this. Not because I'm worried particularly about my skin, but if you leave a glovey fingerprint, it looks like a mark. If you leave a fingerprint, it looks just like what it is. So it looks a bit awful. So let's get a lot of this in here, because that's going to be the predominant. I'm just guessing this, by the way. There's no science behind the colours I'm using. I might find this doesn't look dark enough and I'll go over it again later on with a slightly dark one, but all I want to do is just highlight any little bits of detail. And I'll go a good blob of this grey in there. Looking at that, I might need to go a touch darker. I'm tempted to put another bit of colour in now just to raise that up a little bit. Hang on, what have we got? This Starship Filth gives a sort of greeny grey sort of tone as well, so I'll put a little touch of that in there just to give it a bit more definition. Sorry, this cough's back. I don't want to absolutely drown it with that colour, but I do want to make it so it does cling to a bit of detail. Then later on inside those grills, once this is done, we'll give it a coat of varnish to protect it, then put a bit of black inside them to... Oops, sorry, I knew that would happen. I wanted to get my camera a bit closer. That's more like the sort of what I was thinking, is that sort of salty clingy, messy look you get on your car if you drive it around on a road. Right, so we'll start with the lower hull because we can. So just get a load on my brush, and all I'm going to do is just take it over everything. And just let it run down. We'll wick bits off so it'll just cling onto the edge of those rivets all around. But we need to cover every area of the tank. We can't sort of do it in a half-arsed sort of way. It's got to be all or nothing because this is an overall coat we're going for, just to bring out. Might need to mix up a load more actually. It's soaking up a lot more than I thought on the brush, but it just gives it, clings to all those details. It'll dry a little bit lighter as well. We don't want any massive blobs of it anywhere, runs of it everywhere, but we do want to make sure everything is coated. I'm hoping I'm still on the it should bring out the detail and all this. Hoping I'm still on the camera, so it's muted the black on the mud flaps straight away. You can see that we're picking up detail across the top. I'm going to load on this lower running gear just to bring out any details on that. I'm not too worried about the tracks, actually they're going to be done slightly differently, but while we're here, there's no harm in doing that, I suppose. I never bother with the underside of the tracks. Just a bit of a waste of time, you're never going to see it anyway. So we've done that. Get anything excess off there, so we haven't got any drips yet. We will put runs on it later on, but we do want every area of this covered so we get that uniformity. We'll have to mix up a lot more of that actually. I thought I had enough. Oh, that's a bit heavy, that one. Okay, let's remix some of it. Started to bring out the detail, and what I'll do now is I'll get a lot of this around the running gear, and then I'm going to get some of the brown, not that much, and just grime that up a bit more so it's got a bit more road filth on it, and a bit the same there. And bring that slightly up the sides. We'll We put that there and let gravity do its thing. So we can set that as, that needs a bit more down there, I don't know. Bit more grimy at the back there because it just throw dirt and crud at the back of these things by the look of it. So on camera it probably is. Right, so we can set that aside to dry. There's a bit of pooling there, so we'll just touch the brush on it and that'll ease that off. A bit of pooling there we don't want. Check that a minute and then we'll just roughly get the wheels and do the same thing. So they start to look a bit more messy. I'm doing them flat rather than on the tank itself as well, partly so I can get behind it, but also I don't really want everything to pull at the bottom. I want the wheels to be pretty evenly coated because centrifugal force is going to throw all this sort of stuff outwards. If you just put it on, it'll be heavy at the top of the bottom and it'll look a bit weird. So by having them flat, we're mimicking that centrifugal stuff going on. Get that a bit more grimy. That one needs a bit of a touch up. Oh no, it's heavy in it. Oops, yeah, I forgot those caps aren't glued in yet. Carry on like that with these. I actually quite like that darker colour. So they're all kind of done. Let's have another look at the bottom half of this. A bit more messy up here. Let's do that. So around these areas. Might catch a bit more around there. Bottoms of these bins. Definitely on the back there. Around that. Mud flaps on that ledge. Underneath there, front of it. Copper load, get load down there. So let's leave it at that for now. So we've got this graded colour running down, and we can manipulate it so it looks a bit more streaky if we want. My instinct would be to leave that for now, let that dry off, see what it looks like, and then we can always come back with a bit of clean, odourless thinners and just muck about with that just to get it right. I might do a bit more grimy on the back of that bin. I don't know why, it just feels like it will be. I don't want that too much more grimy. So that should have, in theory, highlighted areas like that around the periscopes, around the tops, anywhere where there's detail that should have a little line of oil paint around it, and we've got grime accumulating all the way around this on the bins and on the mud guards, mud flaps, and on the underside on the wheels, so they should start to look a bit less white and toy like. I don't mind these all looking a bit different because It's not going to be uniform anyway, is it, I suppose? Right. And what I shall do is leave that there. Let that dry off. If I'm happy with it after lunch, I'll let it dry completely and then give it a satin coat to bond all this in. If I feel it needs a little bit more work, I'll just get some white spirits and manipulate it around a little bit, or odorless thinners, not white spirits, sorry. Manipulate it around a little bit so we're getting a bit more of a streaky effect, but I'm quite happy with that. It's taken that white off, it's picked up details on that bit of canvas, details on the top, so for me it's doing what I thought it would do. I won't clean any of the oils of the brush yet. I might clean the brush because we'll be using them later on, but I'll probably use a different brush to manipulate the thinners around later anyway. So let's just get a bit off this brush so it's not as bad as it was. But definitely that's starting to go in the direction I want it to go. Did I? Ooh. Not sure I'll grime that up very well. That's better. So it could be more on that jerry can and around here. But that's all I'm going to faff about with for now. I think you can overdo these things. You have to sometimes let it all dry off and see what you've got before you come back and do some more. So any second now, I'll turn this camera off. Once it's got a satin coat, we can detail things like the indicators and the side lights, the red on the reflectors, and the painting the fire extinguishers, and then we'll put more of a dusty coat. This is more of a filter to show some detail, but that needs dust on it rather than just filters. So the dust coat will be slightly heavier, and I might use a bit more pigment on that, but that's good enough for what we want. I say that, I didn't do the underside of that, did I? So 90% of this you're never going to see. Right, I'm going to switch that off and then go and have lunch, give it say a good hour or so to dry, then we'll be able to see if we can manipulate it, and while it's still in this state I might put some dark grey in all those grills so they start to stand out. I don't think I'll do anything else to the boxes because they've picked up that wash we've put on quite nicely, but it might look a bit weak in places, and already see we're starting to get a bit of a tide mark there, which we don't want, so we'll manipulate that. But yeah, we should be able to manipulate it for a good few hours after it's been done. So let's leave that there for a second and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we're back on the scimitar. I put the wash on, as you've seen, and it's got that sort of grimy look it's looking for. So you're getting bits of grime around all the bolt heads and around hatches, catching up in that cover there. The wheels are a lot more filthy than the rest of it, which you'd expect on both sides, so happy the way that's gone. Then I've given it a satin coat just to seal everything in, and now it's time to paint in the periscopes because I want them to remain slightly glossy. So I didn't want to just put black on because that looks a bit artificial, so I started off with a green, clear green, hoping that'd be quite dark, and that didn't work. So what I've settled on is this royal blue, which is a Tamiya gloss. Then I've added some acrylic flow enhancer. Rather than use the specialist model stuff, I've used this Daler and Rowney artist flow enhancer because it's a lot cheaper and it does the same job. And a couple of drops of standard Tamiya acrylic thinner just to get it to flow nicely, so I've got a nice flow on it. Now this one has gone a bit heavy for a first coat, because it wasn't flowing quite as nicely, so I did that off camera just to try it with a second coat on that, or maybe not a second coat, I might do something else. That'll be all right. This one, yes, it's a bit watery now, but I'm going to put probably 2 coats and then a really thin black wash over it to darken everything up. So what I'm doing is, where's a nice periscope to go to? Hopefully my head doesn't go too much in shot on this. Just get the brush loaded up and you sort of touch it and push it in, and ooh, that's a bit too much, and just let the capillary action pull it to the edges without actually painting it in a conventional sense. I kind of regret not doing these off the model, but it doesn't matter. And yes, I know I've just done that, so what I'll do quickly, lick a cotton bud and just wipe off anything that's on there, and be quick enough, it should go missing. And it's a bit ragged. Oh, that cotton bud's filthy, it's been used for something else. A bit ragged around here, so we'll just quickly clean up. And this won't be the only coat of this. I'll certainly go over it with a, I quite like the way that's sagged down actually. Pleasing effect. So it's just going to be a case of going round, blocking all those windows in until they've got that blue tinge. That one's a lot darker than the first one I've done, so I might give that a touch. Probably the brush load up more, but it gives it a different look to just having a black blob there. I probably will tone it down with a dark black or grey wash over it, because that is a little bit too bright, but let's see how we go. But that's where we are for now. So I'll get all those blocked in, let them dry, probably overnight, then give a second coat of wash on it, and then we can carry on with the weathering. So back in a minute. Okay, so we're on the final sort of stage of the scimitar now. So I've put that blue on all the periscopes there. I'm not 100% sure I like it, but it'll stay like that. I might go a bit darker again, but we'll live with that. I've put a bit of colour on the lights. So jobs we've still got to do are, which I've realised, I'm going to find the right thing in this box. Where's me chipping pens? The one I want's never handy-ish. Ah, there's aluminium. Right. There's lights and indicators here which you'll need a bit of colour putting on them. So we'll start off with a bit of silver on those. You know, I think I might have already done them. Yeah, I have. Do a bit more though. Yes, they'll just need a little blob of orange for the indicators and red at the back. So that's all right. Okay, that's that done. I'll make the headlights a bit more silvery. I've tried to get a reflection of sky and land in them, but it hasn't worked. So I'll probably just lob a bit of the really thin silver over that, then gloss those. So that's only the final touch up. These little fire extinguishers need painting green. I'll do one of those now. I've just got RAF dark green. Any old green will do for that. I've just noticed on the finished ones they are green. So all I was going to do, obviously I've got to put the gun barrel on this as well, but I shall do that last of all because that's going to be quite prone to scratching. So we'll keep the straps to hold the fire extinguishers and the bracketry in that white, and just get a little bit of thin green and just touch those in. I think all this green's been pre-thinned for an airbrush. It's a bit watery, it might need a couple of coats, but try and do it under the centre of the camera instead of wandering off like I normally do. I think it's these little touches that are going to make it stand out a little bit, otherwise it's a bit bland and white. Just need this. I'll do one, let it dry, then do the other sides, otherwise I'll end up putting my thumb in the one I've done. It's gone over the line a little bit there, so get a cotton bud and just the gentlest of wipes. I'll do. Looks fine. So we've got a green fire extinguisher there. The end of that probably should be silver, but we can't really do that. It's going to be too fiddly, so I'll just finish off that last little bit of mist. And I'll be using this green again in a minute, and I'll show you why. I'll paint that, so I'll paint the rest of that at the other one when that one's set a little bit. To keep me thumb, I've already found a few fingerprints in the model where I've been rushing things a little bit. So we've got that done. Wipe this brush off, clean in a bit of water. So the next thing I want to really do is try and put some little chips and scratches in it. Again, I've seen photos of vehicles and they're not that. I wonder if we can get a better angle on that camera so it focuses on the tank. It keeps on moving around. They're not that chipped and scratched, but we will do a little bit. So I've got the original UN white here, which we mixed up. But because this has had its coat of dust, mud and grime, the road grime, the white will be a lot whiter. So all I'm going to do is sort of pick on some areas like the corner of this toolbox and just tap some original bits of the white around there where it would have caught, around these catches probably. Anywhere where things stick out, it's going to be hit by bushes and trees and a few scrapes down here maybe. Nothing too serious, just these little bits and pieces. Would certainly be, I think, scratches round here, round by the driver's hatch and where they get in and out and climbing up and down the thing. So potentially some around these sort of areas. And when the white's dried, I'm going to just go and put a little bit of green in the middle of those as though it's worn right through the paint. Don't know where they climb up on these things to get up, but certainly around these handles you'd be getting a bit of wear and tear. Hoping my head's not going in the shot too much for that. We'll just, I don't know, wild, it's just to draw your eye to it really, it's not to. Edges of that periscope where people have been climbing in and out and rubbing past it. That one as well, don't know why, just felt like it. around that lock, that hatch in that sort of area. My guess is the driver, the commander will be leaning on these periscopes a little bit when he's looking at the top of the probably not so much the back. So yeah, it is just using a bit of logic as to where this is going to happen. So oops, that's a bit big, so it's going to have a big chip in that then to hide some of that. So do we need much more? Probably not. So I think we'll be saying the paint chipping's near enough done. Massively over the top on this. Just want to I'll call that a day on that bit, then we'll switch off and get on to the next phase. Okay, so just had to get some prep. So I want to put a bit of a black wash inside all these grills to make them stand out, but I think black on its own I'll be a bit harsh. I've got some black and some light grey in the mid palette here. Bit of the Abtalon odorless thinners, and we're gonna put some of the black in there to start things off. Probably overdone the black then. A big blob of the grey, and that should just lighten it down a bit. It's still gonna be a pretty dark wash, and it's gonna dry a little bit lighter as well, but it's not going to be as in your face as black, so this thing isn't going to look too zebra-esque. So get all that crud off my brush, and we'll just see how it runs into these areas. Yes, this is giving the effect I want, where it's it's showing a bit of shadow in there, but it's not looking absolutely black and stark. It's a sort of warmish. Warmish grey colour. So it gives you a combination of shadow and a bit of grime. So it will dry off. So much lighter than this as well. But it's definitely giving me that sort of look I was going for. Yep, it's kind of the effect I was looking for. Just get this a bit cleaned on the top. So they just look a bit more emboldened now, which is, say, that's kind of what we're going for. So they look like grills that are standing out. So that's that done. Well, I've got a bit of that. I'll just try and do something more with those headlights just to blend them in a bit. Because they're looking a bit silly at the moment. That's giving it more of what I wanted. Right, so grill's done. Some light paint chipping, but not massively in some areas. The other bit that needs a bit of attention is round here, because that, although this is an aluminium bodied thing and it wouldn't rust, the fixtures and fittings would. And I think we get rust around that because it's a thin sheet metal cover. So where's a nice rust colour? So we've got light rust there, and I need a black sooty colour, I think, for around the exhaust. I don't know if these are diesel or petrol, but I suspect the early ones were petrol, the later ones were diesel, but I might be wrong. So let's get an old-ish brush, or a newish brush, because I'm going to wash it out straight away, it doesn't matter. I just want to pigment this up a little bit, so you're getting a rusty sort of effect on this guard. I don't want it massively so, but just to add a bit of, again, another bit of there's a bit of rust staining onto the old boxes there, but that's fine. It's not going to be in isolation. So that's rusted that up a little bit. And then we'll get some of this sooty black pigment, which is a little bit coarser than I normally use, the Humbrol stuff, but for this it'll be fine, because we don't loads, we just want to stay in an area around here where the exhaust's coming out. I might have to mix a bit of something to cling. Don't want it, so I need to kill it all off and make it black, but I just want it to because we've got the exhaust exit in there. This area is going to be a bit more stained, so that's probably not far off what we're looking for, just general. Scrub a bit into the paint everywhere for what it is. So we got that. It's just a hint of soot and grime there, and again, once everything's together, I can position the turret to take advantage of how that's going to look. If I can get the turret on, I'm trying to do it on camera, which is a bit of a fail at. Not that happy with them periscopes at all, but there's not much you can do about that now. I think we're stuck with those. But just through this gap, you're seeing a bit of rust and a bit of soot, and we may, looking at it, carry that soot up onto the bottom of this. Stowage area there, because if we're saying it's there, it's going to be in that sort of zone. Okay, so it's letting the paint dry on what we've got so far. Yeah, happy with those headlights now. I may come back and do more with those periscopes, or I might not. I might just say that's what they are, because it meant to be glossy and whatever. Let's turn it towards this other camera so you can see it from that way, see more what I mean. So we're getting close. The only other thing we'll need to do is put some earth pigments on the bottom of the tank, but I'll do that last when I've painted the next fire extinguisher, because I'm going to run them slightly up the hulls, so I want everything painted before they go on. So they're the final thing. Then a few reveal photos, Canon going in, as I say, and she's as good as done. So let's leave that for a second while we just finish that off, and then we'll come back to it when the last bits are done. Okay, final stages on the little Scimitar tank then. So not overly happy with the headlights. They didn't work out particularly well, but I've rescued these vision blocks. They're still not exactly as I'd like them, but all I did was put a wash of thin black oil paint on them last night, so it's darkened that blue a little bit further, and it's put a little bit of a black line around everything as though it's a gasket. So headlights have had a coat of crystal clear to give them a sort of glassy look. Don't you see it? Which camera shows it the best? But yeah, I don't know the reflection on them. The only way I would have done it realistically is to drill a hole through those, hollow them out, paint them silver, then put a clear lens over it so it looks like a dished headlight. So that's always going to look a bit ropey. Gun barrels in place. It's a lot longer than I realised it'd be, actually. That is, it's meant to have a clear area there for the recoil, and it's painted alclad burnt iron. So the only things to do now is to give the odd little chip and scratch to some areas. So where we put the blobs of white paint on, I want some of those to look like they've gone through, and I'm just using any old NATO green, and I only put the green chips where there's a lighter white bit on there. So hopefully I don't come too far into shot with this. My magnifier's out of focus today. So I'm just gonna, we've got white bits there, and not every one of them. I'm just gonna touch in. Oops, probably need some of the thicker, older stuff there. Touch that in there and just bring it along a little bit, but I don't want it to go beyond the white. I want it like it's first scuffed the paint to clean it, and then tries to thin this paint down for other reasons in the past. So it's a bit washy, and then it's just gone a bit deeper to the underlying NATO green, but I don't want to ever go back to bare metal because that'd be relatively unrealistic. Just come down there where we've scuffed it. It's only very subtle, and it's only going to be in selected areas. It's not going to be so areas like this where it will have potentially clipped walls and gone into foliage and things. You'll have little chips there. Edges of the toolbox by these tool clamps. It's not unrealistic that there be something going on there. Where the white paint's worn through. Potentially along some edges here. So I don't want it to be massive and uniform in any way. I just want it to be little bits here and there just to show it's wearing through this NATO white paint. Front, obviously, you're going to get areas where have I? So probably around this, maybe where people climb on and off, you'll get little bits. Just coming through there. So go to town with it. Just want to generally in these sort of areas are going to be a given where it's going through the environment. Potentially this big box sticks out further than anything else, so we've got a lot of white on there, so we'll just dabble that in, bring it along. This. And that hinge where they've been prying it open with various bits and pieces. Don't think there's many more areas I need to do on the lower hull, to be honest. A bit down here. And where else have we got? Potentially round by the driver's hatch. Just a bit stiff, that. The gun cradle. Some of these handles, but not all of them. Around the odd hinge. And areas around these periscopes where you'll get the commander leaning against that. I would imagine I'll get bits of abuse where they're climbing on and off as well. So I'll do that. Same on this one. don't think it needs too much more than that, to be brutally honest. I think I'm going to be over the top on the white paint chips here, so we'll have to do something about that. There's no way you get to that. Potentially a bit on here. Where else have I got? Quite watery now. Let's try and find a thicker bit. That's better. I don't know how well that picks up on the camera, but everywhere we've got this dark chipping, we've got a white halo around it. As I say, it's gone through painting multiple stages, so we'll call that a day on that one for that bit. Now what else do I need to do on it? Potentially, well, not potentially, I'll clean that out later on. I do need to sort of put some pigments on it, because I don't know if you can see in the background here, I've got an AFV 432, which is a really nice kit actually. So I wanted to build the Scimitar to go with it, but I want to take photos of it on that base, and that base has got a light earth pigment on it. So I need to put a bit of light earth pigment on this fella, and I don't think it's done. It's one of these ones where it suddenly comes to an end without you realising. So let's get them sorted out. I don't want to be wild on this, just want to let's make the lights dusty to see if that improves them. I really don't like the lights, it's the one bit I'm not happy with. Where this stuff lands, it'll just land as though it's been in a convoy of things and it's flicked up. Scrub it into the paint a little bit. It's not going to go a million miles up the hull, this stuff. It is only a localised effect. The front will be where it's being kicked up from other vehicles, and it'll blend down to the lower hulls. And there'll be very little on the turret because nothing's going to go that high. So just you get the idea of what I'm doing, so I'm going to switch the cameras off now and then we'll come back to this when it's done. So this is the final bit of the Scimitar, and all in all I'm relatively happy with the way it's turned out. I'm not a massive fan of the headlights, that didn't do what I wanted it to do, and there's a few areas around here where it's a bit too clean pigment wise, but can come back. But since you've last seen it, all I've been doing is going around with cotton buds, looking at areas where the pigment's a bit too heavy, sort of like here as well, and just licking the cotton bud and just scraping away the pigment, but then making sure I run it in the direction the water would flood off, so you start building up streaks across the top where it's washed down. So if you look down the side here, you're getting streaks all the way down these side bins, the end where the hinge is, then a few more underneath. So down these side bins it's the same but not as obvious. It's a bit subtle, but it's there. This one streaked up, that one's just got grime on it. So yeah, just generally working like that until I'm happy with their overall finish, or happy-ish. I dumped a load of pigment on the wheels, wasn't careful, I just slapped it on and left it, and it's all sort of settled on the outside as it would if it was thrown out by centrifugal force, so I'm quite happy with that. The one thing I have noticed though is I didn't spend, particularly on this side, I didn't spend any time weathering the suspension arms, and they're showing through as quite white actually. So the wheels are glued on now, so there's not much you can do about it, but if I was doing it again I'd go through and do those, really grime them up before I glued the wheels on and hope for the best. So these little chips have done a blending in a bit now with the pigment on it. They're not as harsh as well, which is what I'd expect. Far happier with the periscopes now they've had that black wash on them, and although it looks messy and grimy, if I put it on the base I made for the 432, if you stand it on a muddied road, it starts to look like it should be that messy. So that's the overall effect I was looking for, that it's been trundling along on unmade roads or dusty roads. It's rain, the dust's turned to mud, and then the mud's sort of washed off with subsequent showers, so we're getting the effects. Just get back now. Keep on seeing bits, that's the trouble, you never know when to end. So yeah, all in all, really enjoyed building the kit. I've got one of the things I intended to, which was a pair of Cold War armoured fighting vehicles. I really should do a Chieftain to go with them realistically, but I've got the 432 personnel carrier and the, well, that's a Scimitar, but it's only a Scorpion with a different gun realistically. But you've got the two 1970s sort of classics. If I throw a Chieftain next to that, which you may do in the future, I've got all three of them. If I do the Chieftain, I'll do it in the Berlin camouflage, but I've got, yeah, this sort of photo, what word am I going? The glamorous side of the armoured fighting vehicles of the 70s in Berlin and Western Europe. So yeah, I'll take a few still photos of that and put them up at the end, but that's this build basically finished. So next time you see me, I think it's going to be making a little 77 scale Mitsubishi Zero. It came with a mystery box when I bought some parts from a company, so I'll put that together just because I can, because it's only small and quite a quick build, and that'll be another 1 or 2 part build. The first part you should see around a week after this, and while I'm doing that I'll think about a more complicated build like the Suzuki to have running in the background. So I hope this isn't too dark actually with the lighting like this, but that flicker's all but gone. So happy with what I've done. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.